About It podcast, season 2. Season 1, not season 2. Episode 4? 4, I believe it is. Today I'm joined by Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hello.
I actually did it correct this time. I just gotta remember to change scenes.
You're not streaming to the wrong service this time.
No, I am not. I forgot to change the guest names. Damn. I need to be more assertive
You need to,
when I'm starting.
work on that.
Yeah, it'll come eventually, I hope, maybe just over time, getting used to it. I'll get used to it. I need to put streamer mode on fucking Discord, because Discord's popping off. So, and I don't want that fucking noise constantly in the background. So, yeah, streamer mode is enabled. But today, on season 1, I keep wanting to say season 2. But season 1.
I just wanted to hop in
4.
and tell you that your mic isn't working.
Who, mine?
Yeah, Karma just, I don't know, he just said your mic isn't working. Hold on.
On the stream? Great. I love running into issues right off the rip.
Just said your mic isn't working. Hold on.
On the stream? No, my mic's working. I don't know what he was saying, but my mic's working. I just listened to it for a second. So, alright, this is episode 4 is off to a hot start. We already have possible
Yep, I checked. Your mic's working on the stream.
I accidentally streamed to the wrong service for 10 seconds. And that's how this is going so far. I forgot to get water, so that's tight. And so that means, Steve, you're gonna have to ramble at a certain point when I need to get water, because I drink so much water during the day. Plus, you also gotta hydrate before you dehydrate, because I go out drinking on the weekends. But nonetheless, after all these issues for the first 2 minutes, we are here. I think I've said this is episode 4 maybe like 5 times already, but I'll say it again, episode 4. We're here with Steve Can Game, or Steve Can Eat Steve.
Whatever.
He was on episode 3. And today, we're going to talk about current relevant events in our society. I actually don't know what we're talking about, but we were saying we should talk about Florence. So
There's a couple things we could talk about. Mostly the Florence, which has kind of reached its end.
yeah, I saw. I wonder what like the most. I saw a thing that it was Florence was the most. It was like the hurricane that hit the most north.
Yeah, it hit north. It was like one of the stronger hurricanes. Because typically by the time they hit north, they just get back to a tropical storm and then like whatever. But like it stayed a hurricane pretty far north.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, its outreaches were so far that like we got tornadoes yesterday, like tornado sirens.
Damn. Are you in? No,
Right.
You're Ohio. You're not tornado. Is Ohio part of Tornado Alley?
No, it's not. That's the Midwest. That's like Missouri and stuff.
Yeah.
No, we basically I was standing outside and we watched this low cloud that was like hitting the treetops. Like it was like bowing and starting to try to curve back on itself, to which I was like, I looked at some of my family, I'm like, how about you guys head downstairs? I'm gonna try to throw some of my chickens in the coop.
Smart. Being from Florida, have you ever experienced a tornado?
Yeah, it tore down 2 of our barns last year.
Damn. See, that's being from.
Yeah, and the worst part was that we were supposed to get sirens. Everybody else got sirens. The 2 places that got hit by a tornado, us and another township, we didn't get sirens. So I was standing outside taking care of my chickens, and I was like, I'm gonna go outside real quick and take care of my chickens. And I threw about 2 chickens inside, and then suddenly it just started like a fucking freight train. I'm like, oh hey, that's not a good thing, because it was windy as fuck, and it sounded like a freight train. I heard things getting ripped up, and I walked back inside. I'm like, how about we go have a party in the basement? That sounds fun.
Well, that's being from Florida. I've never experienced a tornado. I think I've only heard in. I haven't experienced anywhere I currently live, and then I've never even experienced anything close to them. But I've gotten close when I lived in Orlando. There were one time when I was at baseball practice, we saw a cloud start to like funnel, But it just funneled in the sky. It never like started to form. I guess like it basically just looked like a bunch of tubes that were just like closing closer and closer in the sky. That was pretty scary because I was at baseball practice, so we had nowhere to hide if it did. And then another time was playing baseball, and we actually there was reportedly like I think like two or three touchdowns, uh, but it was in places we weren't playing, so I didn't experience those. But I guess like being in Florida, like tornadoes have always been a fear of mine because like never really like dealt with them. So
I don't know. We were visiting some family down in Missouri, and it was the middle of spring, and then suddenly we got a K9 tornado, like a K5 tornado, like it's one of the biggest tornadoes. And apparently one touchdown, so we all hid down the cellar, and I'm just sitting down, and I'm still sitting upstairs on the couch, and everybody's like, "You're gonna get killed." I'm like, "I don't give a shit, man." It's like everybody's like, "Get in the basement." I'm like, "Man, I really don't give a fuck. If I die, I die. Just let me go to sleep." Like, I am not in the mood for this.
true. Yeah, I've only ever dealt with like hurricanes, and the worst hurricane I dealt with was Hurricane Charlie, and
Mm.
that's where it knocked a tree over on my house. But I wasn't at my house. We were at a friend's house, and it crashed through my house, through my room, mine and my sister's room, because we shared a room at the time. And that was about the worst I think I ever experienced for a hurricane.
No, trust me. I was like standing outside, and with the tornado that hit last year, I was standing upstairs, and I'm like, this is interesting. Because all the power died, and the tornado was so bad that we lost power.
Where I live now, they haven't had. So my sophomore year, so 2 years ago, um, it was only a Category 1 hurricane that passed through us, but we haven't, my city hasn't had a hurricane in like 50 years or something like that. We haven't had a hurricane hit us, so we weren't prepared, and a Category 1 knocked power out for a whole week. And so this was the hurricane we stayed in uh, the city, me and my girlfriend did, and because her parents were telling us like, oh, it'll be fine, like you guys should be okay, like just stay there. And so I just bought a shitload of chicken, I bought a bunch of groceries, and and the hurricane hit and it knocked power out, and we had to sleep with no air conditioning for fucking 2 days, which was awful. And
Dude,
so
it
then we
hits like 100 degrees up here, and I don't have air conditioning on a fucking daily basis. And I sleep on a loft on this 2-floor house.
Yeah, see, I usually
Oh.
sleep with the air at like 70.
You're fucking
So,
lucky. I'm sitting here sweating. I will sit on the floor. Like, I bought one of those fucking floor dryers. They have like the fronts of stores, like the doorways on the floor. It's this big ass fan. They dry the floors.
hmm
And I made a pivot stand for it, and so I bought one of those and put it on a pivot stand. It's this big ass fan that just sits there and blows air out.
see, I used to do that, but when I always lived at home, my dad puts the air at like fucking 65, 64 at night. So I'd freeze
Dude,
my
I
ass
love.
off. So there's no, or actually, my room wouldn't get, my dad would put the air on that, but my room doesn't get good airflow for some reason. So I have to sit there and I put a fan on the floor at home. But when I moved up to college, in the apartment I lived in, the upstairs had its own air and the downstairs had its own air. And so and I lived upstairs, and me and my roommate upstairs pretty much agreed on what the air should be at night. And so we always put it on 70, and then I always turned my room fan on because I had an overhead fan, and that was pretty comfortable. And now in the apartment I live in, it's usually pretty cold in here. That's why I always wear a hoodie. But I honestly rather have it cold than hot because you can always put more layers on. You can never
I
like.
know. I remember I was at my buddy's house, and he has air conditioning, and like there's like individual air conditioning for rooms. And he walked back in. I got my room down to like 50 degrees. He's like, why the fuck is it so cold in here? I'm like, 'cause I like the cold. Like, leave it like this. He's like, well, I'm like, no, don't touch that thermo, 'cause I'll break your hand. You said I could fucking mess with it.
Yeah, I saw a Twitter poll yesterday. It was, would you rather, if you could only choose one temperature to leave your air conditioning on, would you rather have it at 83 or 40?
What'd you say?
If you could only have your air conditioning set to one temperature, would you rather have it set to 83 degrees or 40 degrees?
83 degrees in a heartbeat.
Why would you do 83 degrees though?
Not 83 degrees, 40 degrees.
40?
Fuck, I don't know what I'm thinking.
Why would you do
I'm
40?
because I like the cold, and the cold is cold.
Yeah, I think that depends on, because if you did 83, how many fans can you get? Can you put fans in your room?
Yeah,
would
I
do
have one
40,
fan, but
but
that's it.
I would do 40 because like I would just throw a shitload of layers on or something. Because I'm also like I'd wear like sweatpants in my room or something. But also wearing too many layers annoys me at a certain point. Because I went up to Maryland for winter break last year. It's where my girlfriend lives, and it's like since I'm from Florida, I've never really experienced like I've experienced real cold like maybe twice because I used to go to Virginia where my grandparents lived, and we'd go up there in the winter, and it got cold up there. But I was a little kid, so I don't entirely remember it. But I went up to Maryland, and oh my fucking god, dude, the cold is like a whole nother element that I just like wasn't my body couldn't adjust to, or it would have taken
I
longer
can't
to.
adjust. I can't adjust the heat. Like I can hit the cold in a heartbeat, but I can't adjust the heat for shit.
Like
I went down with my buddy to I went down with my buddy to Arizona once, and it was fucking. I'm sitting there sweating my ass off, and we were like, let's go to this indoor ski resort, and everybody there is like dressed in like 5 different layers, and it's cold as fuck. And everybody's like, oh, I have to wear like 18 layers here, and I just walk in a pair of shorts and t-shirt and go, this is great. And everybody there was giving me a weird fucking look. I'm like, hey, I'm from Ohio, like Northeast Ohio, where the fucking lake effect is intense as hell, and the
Oh,
cold
yeah.
is my element.
Yeah, but no, but when I went to Maryland, man, it was just like it hit my body so hard. Like I got it's a whole different like allergies are different and like just I had to put so many layers on, but I was still so freezing. But I wasn't prepared for it because I usually don't like I don't deal with the cold, so I don't really have like cold attire. So I had to sit there and I had to buy like thermals and like I'd always have to wear like underwear, thermals, jeans, and then like a thermal shirt, long sleeve shirt, sweater, and big ass jacket. And I was just fucking terrible. It was awful. I was so fucking annoyed with being there because I got so sick because of my allergies. My nose would never stop running, and it was just I just had a terrible time. It was awful. I like going there in summer though, because I like going to like DC and stuff like that. But winter, man, it is not for me.
Yeah.
But I may have to go to Colorado for an internship. It's a possibility. It's nothing set in stone, but it's a possible thing I may do. So
What's your internship? Smoking copious amounts of weed?
no, it'd be like I think it may be Lockheed Martin. I'm not entirely sure, but so I wouldn't be able to do that.
Got it. Smoking copious amounts of weed.
No, so I may have to go there, but like, and then I'm like, oh well, it's fucking colder there than it is Maryland, so I can't complain. But we'll see, cause job out of college, that's the dream. So can't deal with the cold. And then has every other hurricane that's been off the side of the East Coast diminished, or are they still off the? Do you know?
I don't know actually.
Because I saw there was like 4 or 5 not hurricanes. Some were, I think one was a hurricane. The rest were like tropical storms and then tropical depression.
Well, first it starts as a depression, then it goes to a tropical storm or a storm and then depression. It has some type of formation, and then it just hits like full, and then it just hits full like hurricane status.
Yeah. Because I saw there was like 4 or 5 off the East Coast. The fucking meme where it's like all these hurricanes lined up to just delete the East Coast. But it's also sad we haven't got a hurricane because I usually get my annual hurricane vacation at college. That usual text saying classes are going to be canceled for the next couple of days due to hurricane or tropical storm, blah blah blah. But so that's depressing. But we did get snow in my where I live for the first time in like 20 years or something last year. I wasn't here for it, but my roommate sent me a photo of it, and it actually like it like snowed a good amount too, which was weird for Florida.
Yeah, that's a.
Seasons are a fickle bitch, man.
Seasons are fucking interesting.
I mean, in Florida we only get 2 seasons. We don't
Summer
get.
and slightly less summer.
Yep.
There's summer and hurricane.
I'd say spring. Spring is also pretty good, pretty solid season. Even though spring, it's like, dude, our winter, like, so I mean, we kind of get winter in Florida, especially with like I'm pretty up north in Florida, so it's just like we sit here and but winter doesn't hit till like I'd say like mid to late December, sometimes even January, and then it runs all the way through fucking April. So spring break always sucks dick because it's always I'm like, oh, let's go to the beach, like, cause I go home to Orlando and I'm like, oh, let's go to the beach, and then you go to the beach and it's fucking windy as shit and cold as hell and it just sucks. So spring break always blows because our winter just keeps getting pushed farther and farther back. But it's whatever. But in more recent news, Carter 5, is it, by Lil Wayne dropped? I haven't listened to it. I don't think Steve's listened to it. So we're not going to touch on that. I just wanted to touch up on that. I mean, I like music a lot. I have times where I sit here and I try to find like new music to listen to because I'm into like a lot of stuff. So I always like go through certain phases of what I like. I'll go because I was in like a screamo phase over summer, and then I go through like EDM, some is like rap, and then I haven't gone through a country phase though since high school, so that's good.
I just listen to death metal.
Death metal. I have one of our friends. Oh man, I gotta stretch. One of our friends, Kevin, listens to a lot of like death metal. Like he always sends snaps of him going to like concerts for it and stuff like that. And there's just
It's a Swedish band. It's like you can still understand their lyrics. It's not like so bad that, you know, it's this incessant screaming.
True. Like I'm pumped for this one album. I've been into more like chill EDM lately, I guess. And I've been into like I think I've just been into more like chill shit. 'Cause I was listening to Lil Peep "Save That Shit," which is a good song, and so I've been into more chill stuff. And this artist I really like, Getter, is coming out with an album on the 28th, so next week, and it's like he's released I think 3 songs off the album, and it's been pretty good so far. But I'm pumped for that, and that's about all the music I'm excited for. The XXX and Lil Peep song just came out. I wish Karma was here so he could talk about that because I know he's a big X fan. I have not listened to the song. I listened to a snippet of it when the snippet was posted, but I haven't listened to the full song. But yeah, I think that's about it because that's all my knowledge on music at the moment. But what else is going on in the world at the moment?
So I don't know. There's another shooting in Maryland, but at this point, it doesn't even fucking faze me.
Another like school shooting or like just shooting?
Yeah, it was a shooting. I'm not sure if it was a school shooting. I'm not sure if it involved youth. All I know is when I walk outside and see the flag half staff, it really doesn't fucking like, catch me off guard.
Isn't that like bad with like the society we live in nowadays? Like shootings don't even like faze us because they happen so often.
Yeah, the shootings, it's just, they happen so often now, and it's like, why do I give a shit? Because it's gonna happen again next week, and you can debate about mental health or gun, rights, but it's gotten down to the fucking cycle of shooting happens. We debate whether it's a gun problem or a mental health issue. We argue with each other, nothing gets done, everybody forgets, 3 days later, the cycle repeats.
True. I think it's a both issue at the same time.
It is a both issue. Like, I'm not fully blaming firearms, but I'm also not saying that our mental health care is the fucking best. It does. Continue.
I was just gonna say I do think like there should be more restrictions on guns. Like you should go through more of a background check and test and stuff like that to get a gun for
I will
sure.
say, yeah, I don't think you should be able to buy your guns from Walmart because I do. I own guns. I am a avid gun user, but at the same time, it's like when I walk in with my buddy and he literally goes to buy an AR. We walk around for 15 minutes. We come back. He says you're good, and we walk out like 15 minutes later with an AR. I'm like, that's a problem. You shouldn't be able to fucking do that.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, I think there should just be
And
like
like, if I
designated
shit you not,
like
my I got a gun from Walmart because I was just looking for a bird. I was just looking for a really cheap shotgun, and I walked in. I'm like, "Can I get that gun?" They're like, "Sure," and they gave it to me. I'm like, "Don't you have to do a background check?" They're like, "We'll call you if there's a problem." I'm like, "But if there's a problem, I'm already out of the store with the fucking gun."
do I don't know if this, but as a store selling guns, do you have to have a license or like a?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, what my idea just was I just said was a lot, was to like have designated registered stores that can only sell guns. Like say in like your city, you get like one or two stores that can only sell guns, and you have to go through extensive like background and mental health checks to um, to get the gun. Like I say you have to take like a proctored test if you want to get a
I
gun.
say what I really think you should have to do to get firearms, and because everybody's like, well, you can't do that. You can't do training for like if face it, how do you get a license? You have to go and take classes and you have to do a driving test. I'm not saying you have to take classes on firearms, but what I am saying is that you have to go take a test on firearm proficiency, just so that way you can't just walk in and get a gun.
Yeah, I think that would be smart.
Because so that way only people who know what the fuck they're doing with guns can get them. Because
Mhm.
do you remember? Now this is kind of give you a location around where I live. There was a shooting when I was in middle
Columbine.
school. No, fuck, I'm not even that fucking old. No, there was a shooting when I was in middle school, and it was in a place near us, and it was one of the first shootings. This was like when shootings were like
New.
fucking like a new concept, like like Columbine happened and Virginia Tech happened, but this was like at the beginning. This was like before they became like a monthly thing,
Mhm.
or a weekly thing rather, and so we were sitting there, and then suddenly the fucking secretary comes over the intercom like lockdown drill. Repeat, there's a lockdown drill, please. And so we were in gym, so we ended up hiding inside the ball closet for about 2 hours straight because a nearby high school had a guy walk in with an AR and a handgun, or one of the two, and he went and shot 6 kids, and he killed 4 of them, and 2 of them were in critical condition, or like no, he killed 3, and then 1 died in critical condition later.
Mhm.
But either way, and so it had the high school there had the same initials as our high school. It was like CHS and CHS. So we had a bunch of SWAT. We had a SWAT truck, and parents show up to our high school, and they were like searching our high school for a gunman, but they couldn't find one to find out it was the wrong high school.
Hmm. That that kind of blows on that. The
But it was still just the fact of it was like like a whole different thought of that whole thing going on.
there was when I was in middle school at the high school close to me, there was one day where a whole like SWAT team. There was a lot of I think there was gang related violence that went on at the high school, and I was talking to this one girl one time about it, and she's like, yeah, because she was in the high school at that time, and she had one friend who told her he's like, do not come into school like this day. She's like, but I have a test. He goes, take your test and leave. Because I think there was a bunch of gang related stuff that was going to go on, and like all these people were going to fight each other, and there were going to be guns and shit like that. And so there was SWAT, there were cops on horses at the school. The school was like surrounded, like, and I didn't really I can't remember a whole lot about what happened, but I just know that there was that one day at that high school, and then at the college UCF, which is near me. Um, there
Yeah.
was this one. It wasn't a shooting because the guy's gun locked up or jammed. But this kid who was just depressed bought. I can't remember what he bought. I want to say I know it wasn't an LMG, but like he bought a full auto rifle. And even though you can't get full autos in the United States, can you?
Well, here's the thing: you can, but it requires. So here's how it works. So every citizen typically has a Class 1 license or a Class 2 license. I forget how it works. But then you have to apply for your Class 3, which gets you access to buy automatics and gets you the permission. But you still have to store them in a lock safe, XYZ, ammunition in a separate room. But then you can get your suppressed license, and then after your class 3 in your license to carry, concealed carry, then you can apply for your demolition license and so on and so forth. I wish to own some military antiques in the future, so I would eventually have to go get a demolition license if I don't want to, like, weld the tanks to the point where the guns no longer work.
Yeah. All right.
But
Yeah.
so yeah, let me continue. And then that's how that works. So you can technically get it, but it is a bit of a bitch. So, like, that shit doesn't really fly. Like, people keep an eye on automatic weapons.
Yeah.
But, semi-automatic and bolt action, no one really gives a shit if someone buys them. But the second you bring automatic into the equation, it's like, no, something's up here.
Yeah. So with the UCF thing, the kid, he was just like depressed, and so I think he may have gotten a full auto or something. But he had a bunch of rounds, and he was in his dorm room. And what he was gonna do was he was gonna pull the fire alarm, and when the kids came out of their dorm rooms, he was just gonna line them up.
Light 'em. Yeah, I've heard that multiple times.
Yeah,
that's like
but when he did it and he went to go shoot, his gun jammed, and he ended up just killing himself. I'm pretty sure. So that was bad. But going to the antique thing, when I was in Virginia, there was actually this one guy who he has like his own like museum of like military antiques. Which was I went to go see it, and it was actually like, pretty cool. Like, it's this guy, he just has a shitload of land, and he built like a bunch of like log cabins, or I wouldn't say log cabins because he definitely has to have more security than that on these buildings. Or it's Virginia, and everyone knows everyone's carrying a gun on them. But he had a bunch of log cabins, and each was dedicated to like a different era of antiques, which I thought was like pretty cool. He had like World War II stuff, like Vietnam and all this shit, and I wish I could remember more because it was actually like really cool to go there. But
I remember when we went to a friend, my buddy's friend. He had a bunch of military antiques, and the first thing that caught my eye was a World War I Mauser 13 millimeter anti-tank gun. And so I'm like sitting there, I'm like looking at this thing. He's like, "You can pick it up," and he didn't have any rounds for it because the rounds are so fucking like rare that finding them's a bitch. I had something to go off on earlier. Oh, so have you had to take Alice training for college? Because I know I have.
no, I don't even know what Alice training is.
Alice training, especially in the north, it's essentially it's like alert, lockdown, inform, contain, evacuate. It's essentially an acronym for what to do in a school shooting or a shooter situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're watching the school shooting situation, and so I've already attended this class, and I say it's a fucking joke, like this entire class, because I actually looked up the concept behind Alice, and apparently, the entire the near concept around Alice is to basically slow the shooter down by 20 seconds, so that way the first responders have 20 seconds to get there. Not to help protect you or save your life, but so that you slow the shooter down 20 seconds while he kills you so the first responders can get there. And I thought it was a fucking joke. So I went to another one of the Alice trainings, and they're like, "We need someone to be like the fake gunman." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll volunteer." And it's like, "Okay, we're going to show you swarm tactics." And so during my demonstration, the gunman like let the guys tackle him. Like they all walked up and grabbed a limb and tackled him. I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. And so I walked up to be the gunman, and they gave me a Nerf gun and said, "This is your gun, do it X, Y, Z." And so, okay, I'm like, they brought 4 guys. I'm like, "Okay, you're going to need at least 10. And like, they're like, "Okay, let's bring 6 more." I'm like, "No, wait, that was after the second time." So there was 4 guys, and they came and charged me. And so I shot the one. The one dude hit me. I threw him off my side. The other dude hit me. I threw him over my back. And the third dude didn't even come at me. He was too afraid. So I went back to the other 2 and shot them, and then shot the last one. And I'm like, "This is a fucking joke." And then she's like, "Wait, you were supposed to let them tackle you." I'm like, "No, that's not how it happens in a shooter situation. The shooter's not going to go, 'Oh, well, they're swarm tacticking me. Might as well give up.'" And so they did it with 10 people, and I killed 3, and I threw a couple off, but they finally got me. And I looked at the instructor. I told her, "This is a joke. If swarm tactics are work, you have to have at least 10 to 12 people, and 3 of them have to be willing to die." And then I walked away. She's like, "But no." I'm like, "No, your Alice training basically slows people down so first responders can get there. It doesn't save lives. It slows the gunmen down. Don't fucking lie." And I walked out the door. They're like, "But your Alice certificate." I'm like, "I already fucking got it. I came here to prove a point," and walked out.
Yeah.
And she was very. I eventually and this was part of my first year experience for college. And my instructor walked by. He's like, "I don't appreciate what you did, but you did kind of bring some enlightenment to the people who were teaching the Alice training." I'm like, "Yeah."
I
And I
know
end up
more than
when
your house instructors.
dude, it was like, it was just like I sat there and I talked to him. I'm like, "This is a fucking joke."
But then I was also gonna. I remember what I was gonna say earlier when we were talking about like the mental health and the guns, and there was 2 points I wanted to hit on that. It's like that when people say, I'm gonna do the mental health one, and then I'll get it to the other one. The first point's the whole like how mental health isn't treated that well. I'd say in the United States.
Yeah.
And how everyone like if you say like, oh, I have like depression or I have anxiety, you're like,
I don't.
I
You
have
walk
this,
through
and
your
people,
average. You walk through your average high school. I walked through because I went to the high school I went to because my brother's in it now, and I walked through it, and it's literally everybody being so depressed to the point where they don't give a shit about dying. Like everybody's like, well, it's the mental health. I'm like, it's kind of bad when an entire generation walks around saying they don't mind because. I forget who I was talking to. They're like, "Well, you die." I'm like, "You think I really give a shit?" And I think this was around my grandma. She's like, "You don't care if you die?" I'm like, "You really think I give a shit?" And she was just caught completely off guard. I'm like, there's so much shit wrong right now that
oh yeah,
dying is the least of my is like the easiest way out.
yeah. But I feel like it's also like whenever someone says like I have depression or anxiety, it's just kind of shoved off as like people just go, don't have it, like. And I know
Oh,
that's not a thing, but then I
and
also feel like there's a lot of people out there that sit there and they think they have something, but they really like don't. Like I feel like anxiety is something that is very like that people think they have nowadays, but like kind of don't in a way. Like I'd say if you just get stressed about a situation and people go, "Oh, I have anxiety," it's like you don't kind of because I've met people that actually. I mean, I guess there's different levels of anxiety. I can't really like say too much on it because I've never personally dealt with it, but um, that's all I really like know on that. And then the other one I was going to say was how they want guns banned.
I remember I don't think banning guns is a solution.
No, because I feel like there's always going to be a way to get them, even if they're banned. Same thing. It's
There
like how
there
drugs
is
are
always
nowadays.
there's always going to be a way to get them. It's basically like the drug war. The drug war was a fucking joke because we banned drugs and what happened? It just became more expensive, more problem. The fucking drug trade become worse better for the drug traders, but it just made the situation worse. It was like didn't dissolve shit.
Mm-hmm. Yo, your fan's blown into your mic.
Sorry.
What were you gonna say about something before?
I don't know. Just this whole situation's a fucking joke.
Yeah, I do feel like we are, as a society, we are very desensitized to shootings nowadays because it's just like
And
you get a
it's
rinse
like
and repeat process of it whenever it happens.
it's like, and here's the other process I forgot to mention. What I do, what I'm going to mention is the one part I forgot about the school shootings. Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. That happens to any national disaster now. As we just send out thoughts and prayers to those who are affected. It's like, no, bitch, get off your fucking couch and go do something.
Yeah.
Go vote. Go donate. Your thoughts and prayers aren't gonna do shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a friend who's he's very against the whole like he's very anti-religion in a sense that when people think like when someone's dying or like someone's going through cancer, like you say that it's like
Yeah,
oh my prayers are pray for this person, and it's like
bitch.
It's like
your prayers don't stop cancer cells.
Yeah, because my friend was sitting there saying like he's like oh my he's like someone had cancer and like they ended up beating it, but they're like oh pray for her and like ask God to like do better and all this stuff, and then she ended up getting better, and it's like oh the Lord help. I'm like he's like the Lord did not fucking help. He's like the radiation therapy and chemo is what helped.
Here's my big problem. I don't like to be, I'm not a religious person. I even got to look in the doctor's office when they ask me, do we need a... He's like, what religion would you like us to put down for like on this list? I'm like, none. And so I got some weird looks, but it's still just, there's so much going on. And I don't mind if you have a religion. It's cool. If I had to have a religion to be Buddhism, but it's like the whole concept of when I walk through the park and like 80 different people are standing in like a public park on a Saturday handing out like this one woman. Like I went around this group handing out Bibles and shit and talked to you about God. I went like 80 feet around them, and this one woman literally chased me fucking down to give me, and she's like, "Would you like to talk about the Lord?" And this may offend people, but I'm like, "Sorry, I stopped reading fiction books in kindergarten," and walked away. And oh, she was not happy.
That'll probably offend people. That'll probably offend a lot of. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, my thing is like, I'm more like, I'm very open to a lot of ideas. Because my thing is always just like, if I'm like, I always think of the possibility of like that there may be something out there. I just don't know it yet.
There's without a fucking doubt. There's probably extraterrestrial life.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. I mean like a god or like something like that, or like.
I'm not so sure about the El Creator theory. That's one of the theories I'm not so sure about. But,
I have a friend who's very religious. He became very religious, and I love him to death. He's been like my friend since like literally we've been hanging out since we were 1 years old, and 1 year, not years, because one is singular. But so basically we got like drunk one night and we were talking about it, and I was just like, I'm like, I don't know if I like necessarily like believe in that stuff, because I'm like science kind of makes more sense where it comes from, but I'm like, I also just don't know. I'm like, he's like, I just think you don't believe because like God hasn't touched you yet. I'm like, it could, and I was just like, I'm trying to be open-minded about it. I'm like, that could be a possibility, because I'm like, what if God doesn't touch me my whole life until I die, and what if when I die there is actually a God, and then it's like that's the moment. It's like when I die I could wake up in a simulation or like all this other shit. There's so many possibilities because no one knows what happens when you die.
Here's my other concept to that is, people can believe in the religion. I get it, but I had this one person she was very religious, and I was fine with that. And I do have a tendency to swear, and I said, God blanket. And she's like, don't use the Lord's name in vain. To which I told her to stop shoving religion down my throat. To which she tried to say, you're going to hell, heathen. And I looked at her straight in the face, and I said, well, along the terms of what I said earlier. And she was very upset with me to the point to where she tried to have the principal suspend me for 5 days for insulting her religion. Well, then she pulled up the security cams and she saw what happened, and I was just like, it was just bullshit. But people like that, I hate to say it, they're like the 1%. They're like, the bad apples of the barrel of good ones that ruin it for everybody. It's like it's like, have you ever had bag pistachios and then you get the one thing you get the one pistachio that's like rotten to the core and tastes like ass?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially like that. It's the one bad one that ruins the rest of the bag.
Yeah, it's just because it's also like I grew up and like my parents tried to make me go to church, but like I just found church so boring. Like I couldn't stand. I couldn't stand like standing up for like 4 songs that I had no like interest in, and then like
that was
a sermon that I like just didn't care for. It was just like I went there for the donuts. That's what I went there for. Donuts.
I remember I was part of religion, and my parents raised me through. They took me to like Catholic school on the Sundays, and I was an altar boy at church, and I even confirmed, even though I regret that decision immensely, because the bishop was like, you guys need to confirm as fast as possible. It's just like, And so as I'm sitting there, I'm sitting there in a youth group. I've never liked this youth group. It's just like, it's never appealed to me. And I'm like, one day I just look at my mom, I'm like, I'm not going in today. She's like, why? I'm like, I don't like this whole concept of believing, in this. And then I also don't like the people because they get in your face about it very much, about everything. And it's just like, no.
Yeah, it's just.
And I hate to say it. I'm going to say this. I'm going to throw some wisdom your way. You remember the whole thing about how Moses crossed the desert in 40 days.
Mm-hmm.
And he had almost no food or water.
Yep.
Don't you think it's weird that in the story of Buddha, he sat under a tree for 40 days and 40 nights without food or water to reach a state of natural euphoria?
Nirvana.
Yeah, like there's so many connections between each religion. It's really just like someone took a story and added their own twist to it. That's all it fucking is nowadays.
Except Norse mythology.
Norse mythology, that's a whole different ballpark.
I was gonna say with the heathen thing, if she called you a heathen, you could say you're basically calling me a Viking at the same time, because when Vikings raided fuck, what was it? I took a Norse mythology class. Um, Normandy, basically. That's why it's called Normandy, because the Vikings, they
Yeah.
raided it and they took
Yeah.
it over. But that was when, I think that was when they were first discovered. And they called them heathens because they came and burned and pillaged uh,
Yeah, but
the
it was still
town.
just
But then the Norse mythology, like they sit there. My thing is like you can sit there and like Norse mythology is so like at the time like those people believed in that stuff. But
yeah,
like
that
and
but
nowadays it's so like denounced, like it's
here's
not like a real thing. And like
yeah, here's what like how long before we look at Christianity, Islam, Judaism the way we nowadays look at Greek mythology or paganism?
yeah,
And here's my thing. We turn religion to come up with solutions to things we didn't understand, like lightning strikes hitting houses and burning things down. I remember watching this documentary or something on the fact that people would say if a house got burnt down by lightning before they found a way to transfer lightning from your roof down to the ground, if your house got hit by lightning and it burnt down, it was God's way of saying you were sinning. But
interesting.
now we know that lightning just strikes randomly as a result of nitrogen clusters bursting. I think that's it.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I just knew that it starts with like it connects with like the energy from the ground or something like that. I don't.
Yeah, but it's still just it's the fact of religion was our way of coming up with solutions. And my one friend who he's like me. He doesn't mind. He's a little more in depth into religion needs to go, but he's like me. I don't mind if you have one, but you start shoving it down my throat, we're gonna have problems. He explained to me. He said, put up a good point. Jesus is a babysitter who's available 24/7, is free, and is always watching.
Yeah. My thing I always said, I'm like, I always, well, I still kind of is, religion is like a a moral law that people live by, or also something to grasp onto to think something good happens when you die. Because everyone fears death. Not everyone, but a lot of people fear death, and they always want to believe something good happens when they pass away. So it's like, if I believe in this, then something good will happen to me when I die. So,
Yeah, and then it's basically a way to keep people in line. But the other thing I remember was what was it? Fuck, I had it. Oh yeah, Christmas. Christmas was originally a pagan holiday where you burned a Christmas tree to celebrate the winter solstice and that it was coming to an end.
mhm.
And then Christians were like, this is like, paganism. You fucking partied. Like, you had beer, you were drunk, you were doing all that. And then Christians were like, this is this, or like, really, Christians, I think it was Christians or Catholics, were like, this isn't religious. This is like, this is awful. And so they ran over and they basically stuck an angel on top of the tree and said, this is Jesus's birthday. And everybody's like, no one really gives a shit. We're still burning the tree. And then eventually we just kind of learned to accept it.
Yeah.
And I know that in the U.S. when the colonies first formed, Christmas was banned. It was like something that they didn't want. It was like get it the fuck out of here. Like it was banned as a holiday because of just all the bullshit.
Oh, there's this comedian who he does a joke about religion that I thought was pretty funny. And he's like, you guys know how like there's all these like religions out there, and he's like, and everyone says they're all equal. He goes, you want to know the one religion that won, the one like true religion that's out there? He's like, what fucking year are we in right now?
2018.
That's how you know Christians won. We have
Yeah,
BC and AD, and then he's like, you have the Jewish that are secretly in the background. It's actually year like 3000 something.
yeah. But here, I don't know. I watched this thing and it was like it was like what's like they want to change our universal time system to like the time of science, and it basically starts 12,000 years. We would be like in 12,018 right now or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to do and it starts when the first record of human society started by building a temple, by building something like
That's
a
I think that's what the Jewish, they think it's like 12,000 something, because they
hold up.
start from the first day of society. But I was actually watching Joe Rogan with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and they were talking about why some months have 30 days and some months have 31 days. And Joe Rogan was saying, why don't we just take the 31 days and throw them to February, and then so February gets 30 days, and then you have basically every month has 30 days, and then there's like one month that has 31. and I think I may be wrong on this. I'm not entirely sure. I can't fully remember, but they were saying Neil deGrasse Tyson was saying that the way like the precession of the Earth, in the
Mm-hmm.
way it wrote in the way we like orbit or something, that you're basically gonna get that. I can't finish that. I can't completely finish this, but it's just like the basically the way like the Earth orbits and rotates that you can't really you're gonna get wonky days basically if you throw 30 days in each month. Like you're gonna end up getting like, instead of, you know how we have 24-hour days, we'd end up
Oh
having like
yeah,
20
yeah.
26 30-hour days or something if we wanted to do that. And so
Hmm.
I think it was, I'd have to go back and look it up, but I may look it up right now, but it was basically just saying like
So I found out it is the 12th of Tershi, 5779 in the Hebrew calendar. So it's like 5,779.
um I love the Mayan calendar that said we were going to end in 2012. Even though we really weren't going to end in 2012, I think that's just when they.
I still stayed home that day. I was just like, because everybody was like panicking, like the world's gonna end, and I sat there. I'm like, Mom, do we have to go in? Because I don't want to deal with panicking dipshits. And she's like, No, I'm not going in either. Because my mom was a teacher, so I was just like, we stayed home that day, and nothing happened, and you know.
It's like, oh fuck. All right, so I found the answer. So the length of the months varied slightly from a culture to another. This is all right. This is why, or wrong, wrong screen. But this is why we have some days at 30 and some days at 31, and it's number of days based on cycle of the moon, which was last about 29 and a half days. This one, this was noticeably. This is just a. My answer does not seem it from perspective physics after Julius Caesar's death. Blah 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 blah. But I guess it's just the way the moon rotates around the Earth, and estimating the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar regulate the calendar should be. It was decided that all months should have 30 or 31 days. But February. So Julius Caesar said that all months should have 30 or 31 days, but February, which at the time only had 29, hence the term Julian calendar. Interesting. So yeah, I guess Julius Caesar is the one who demanded that we have those times. I feel like there's more of a scientific way to go about this. I really recommend watching the Neil deGrasse Tyson podcast with Joe Rogan. He is an interesting fucking person. He is so goddamn smart.
I know that.
It is unbelievable. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people know it. He's like have you ever watched his show Cosmos?
I used to.
Or he did one season of it, I think. But it was, boy, was that super fucking interesting. I really enjoyed watching it. Or what other Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman? I haven't watched that one, but I do know I should watch it. But there's also, what other good shows are out there? Do you have any? You watch any TV shows?
Not really.
No, I've watched. I just finished watching The Office. I've watched Black Mirror. Black Mirror is also really good. If you want to have anxiety for an entire.
My buddy did say watch Black Mirror, but be prepared to be depressed and have anxiety out the ass.
Yeah, you're gonna be stressed the entire show because it takes so many twists and turns. You never fully know.
Yeah, he
what's
said
going
it's
on.
basically like getting in a 747, watching your regular pilot walk back to the bathroom, change and put on a stunt suit, and then go, this is going places and I don't like it.
It's I will say it's very interesting, and it's I've read a lot about the director, and it's his, and the show is a reflection of his thoughts on a future dystopian society. And I'd say a lot of the concepts are very interesting with it. I haven't watched season three or four. I've watched one episode or two episodes out of season 3 or 4. I can't remember what's the newest season. And I watched, there was the Black Museum, which is basically a museum of past Black Mirror episodes and some ones that aren't past episodes. And it's I ended up, when I got really into the show, not last summer, but the summer before that. And but I was like diving. We were like, so we were watching it, and like when you get through the first season, you're like, oh, there's like this. The concepts are kind of cool. The first fucking episode is a guy who fucks a pig. But the reason he fucks a pig is because like his daughter or someone, the prime minister's daughter, was stolen or kidnapped, and he was kidnapped by some artist, and the artist was trying to prove that people will watch anything. And so people watched him fuck this pig for like an hour. And so that's the very first episode. And basically like I started like diving deep into like the timeline of it, and you start to realize a lot of the technology between episodes starts to cross over, and a lot of like the timelines interlap, and it's just it's a very interesting show. I'd say the one that I'd say is kind of relevant to our society nowadays, or they're all kind of, but the one that was the most relevant was this episode where your societal ranking was based off your social media. So everyone would post pictures of what they were doing and what they would do in their day, and depending on how many likes and scores you got is how high of a ranking you were in society. And basically, like people who got a lot of likes were basically people who were good looking and stuff like that got higher rankings, and people who weren't got lower rankings. But then you had people who just didn't give a fuck. Like the main character in it, her brother. The main character in that one is have you seen Jurassic Park?
Yes.
The girl who's in that, the redhead, she's the main character in that one. And she's like going through this whole phase of like, she's trying to like get higher in society. So she's like always trying to post, and like she gets like upset when people don't like her stuff or like something like that. And also when you pass people, you had to rate them. You had to rate your interaction with people. So, like, if you rated it, like, 5 stars or something like that. And so you basically just see her go over the show, like, she cared so much about this stuff. And then she just went to a deep pit, and she just started getting fucking worse and worse ratings. So her rating went from, like, 4 stars to, like, 2 stars. And then eventually she just stopped giving a fuck at the end. So the show is very good. I'd recommend it to a lot of people. But, you watch any movies?
There's a couple. Watched The Great Wall. I watched, what was it fucking called? The Interview. That was a really good one.
Oh, with Seth
Rogen.
Yeah.
I watched Neighbors and then Neighbors 2. I've watched a couple things, but again, I really just kind of watch documentaries on YouTube, or I watch Top Gear.
True. Those are Top Gear's always. I've watched a couple episodes.
I'm not a car guy. I'm not a car guy, but I like their antics and I like what they do. Like when they go, like I liked when they went down and do like the things, like they go drive through Africa, or like take dune buggies on the deserts, or like what the one thing where they went to Vietnam on motorcycles.
Yeah, I haven't seen those. I think I've seen like 1 or 2, but yeah. I think only recently the movies I've watched is Arrival, and then the new Mission Impossible. And
I did. No, that's a while ago.
Arrival was really good. I'd recommend that movie. It's
I thought about it. One I really, really, really liked was what was it called? Oh, Hacksaw Ridge. I like that, but I'm also a World War II guy.
Oh, is that the one with I've seen that. It's got the the second Spider-Man guy in it. The second guy who played Spider-Man.
Yeah, it has him.
Yeah, I've watched that movie where he basically is like he's anti.
He's basically a pacifist, but he's a medic in a war.
Yeah, and he ends up saving like a shitload of people.
He also sent down a few Japs, but they didn't make it, as the fucking guards are sitting there with a smirk on their face. I'm like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. The second you mentioned there was Japanese people coming down, they weren't going to live much longer.
Did you see Dunkirk?
Oh, fuck. I knew I missed one of them.
Dunkirk's really good. It's minimal talking and like all action, and it's a very good movie. I'd recommend Dunkirk too. I need to finish watching it because I downloaded it on my PC and because I watched it on a flight home from Maryland, and it's just like the flight isn't that long, and the movie was longer, and I think I got to like, I think I had like maybe like 20, 30 minutes left, and I didn't finish watching it, but I need to. But that's also a good movie. What else? What other good war movies are out there? Because I like
Um,
watching war movies. Those are good.
fucking Fury was a great movie.
I haven't seen that one.
I forget who the main actor is, but it's essentially it's a Hellcat. No, it's not a Hellcat. It's a I forget it. No, it's a Sherman Firefly, and
Oh yeah,
so
no, I have seen it with the tank.
yeah, with the tank and then like it's the crew's last stand in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of an alley versus a bunch of like an SS battalion. Yeah, it was really good because everybody like I'm sitting there and I heard reviews that it's like not your average World War II action movie where they're saved at the end. I watched it and like at the end where the one guy hides under the tank and the other German teenager who's been drafted into this war
Season,
sees
but
yeah, and he like lets him go and then it's just like there's no saving, they all die and there's like the cavalry's here and fucking planes and tanks. It's like, no, you're fucked, you're dead.
yeah, and then
And
because
everybody's like,
he was the youngest,
and,
wasn't he? That's why they
yeah,
let him.
he was the youngest. He was just drafted. He was drafted. He was like 18 months. He was like 18 years and like a month old, and a couple other things. And I remember watching, and everyone's like, "What? I thought they would like save him at the end." And then at the end, I'm like, "No, it's like a real World War II movie. There isn't like fucking planes coming in."
There's no like bird, like the whole entire fucking army comes in out of nowhere and blows
Yeah,
up.
yeah. No, the one thing that really did, because they even like like before they left, they even like specified that like they don't have much to like give to help defend this engineering corps, and so like they originally set off with 4 tanks, and then they got sidetracked to go help a battalion and lost 3 of their tanks to a Tiger, and then it was basically them, and then they hit the anti-tank mine, and the final fight scene was good. It really confused me though how like they zoomed in on the sniper's face, like we were supposed to know the sniper or something. I'm like, this doesn't make sense, but it's still kind of badass.
Yeah, that's kind of like the I can reference that sniper scene to the sniper scene from Saving Private Ryan.
I actually have not watched that.
Oh man, dude, Saving Private Ryan's such a good war movie. Saving Private Ryan's really good. And then have you seen Inglorious Bastards?
Yes, I have.
That's also a good movie. I was not expecting. Well,
I'm
it's
not
Quentin
gonna say
Tarantino, so
I'm not gonna say it's a very realistic World War II movie.
Oh no.
But it's a good World War II movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's directed by Quentin Tarantino, isn't it? Or Inglorious Bastards. Who was it directed by? I know it was.
Probably Clinton Tarantino, like you said.
Ow! I just punched my desk. Directed by Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, it was a good movie. Definitely has a interesting turn of events to it. Yeah, Saving Private Ryan. When I looked up Inglourious Bastards, it related searches is Saving Private Ryan and Fury, because
Yeah, Fury was a fucking good movie.
Brad Pitt's in Inglourious Bastards and Fury, and then Matt Damon and Tom Hanks and some others are in Saving Private Ryan. I saw a thing the other day. It's like how much there's so many movies where we're saving Matt Damon. There's Martian, Interstellar, Saving Private Ryan.
Dude, what was the one movie I really wanted to use? I think it was called like The Negotiator, but it was like this insurance agent worked with the CIA. This like insurance realtor met on the bridge with the CIA and was basically they were spy trading. They met on this bridge in Berlin and they were basically trading spies. And I think it had Tom Hanks was the trader. He was like, the insurance guy. He was like, I think it was like The Negotiator, but it looked decent. I didn't watch it though.
So I looked up all the movies where we've saved all the movies that are saving Matt Damon, and it's
extensive.
Yeah,
Matt Damon. Oh God, please! Like when you see you're on an airplane with Matt Damon, you just suddenly just start twirling your thumbs like, when we crashing, boys?
There's Courage Under Fire, Saving Private Ryan, Titan AE, Syriana, Green Zone, Elysium. I haven't watched Elysium. I heard that was a good movie. Interstellar, The Martian. So yeah, there's 8 movies saving Matt Damon. Damn, The Martian's budget was $200 billion, and Interstellar's budget was $500 billion.
Yeah,
Interstellar's a good ass movie.
Yeah.
I really
I
like
know
that.
The Martian was really good too.
I haven't seen it.
It's good. Apparently, like if you read the book after watching the movie, it goes more in depth of why shit starts to break.
Yeah.
It's like, it wasn't meant for this long of use and for as much of a use. Like if you watch it, you'll understand.
Yeah. Also in like the Neil deGrasse Tyson podcast, he he actually like they brought him on to make sure all the physics were right for
Yeah,
the
all the
movie, because there was a movie that came out and Neil deGrasse Tyson he didn't bash it on Twitter, but he just said certain elements of it were wrong because they got the physics wrong. So
Mhm.
now whenever people are making a movie, they sometimes contact him to make sure like they're getting like the science and the physics right of
Yeah.
it.
The one thing I'm thinking about going to see is The First Man.
Oh yeah, the about Neil Armstrong and
Yeah. My only concern is I'm gonna go watch it and there's gonna be a bunch of like conspiracy theorists going like, this is fake. This is fake. This is fake. That's not right.
yeah. Have you seen the thing about Elon Musk sending
What the
the
fucking
first
Tesla Roadster?
no the passenger plane or the passenger ship that's going to orbit the moon?
Ah, no, I heard about it, but I haven't seen anything about it.
He's sending a passenger ship to the moon, and they're taking 8 artists
Hmm.
to go with them. And I said you should put a flat earther on that thing too. And
Oh my god, that'd be so great.
knowing Elon Musk, would probably put a fucking flat earther on it. But yeah,
Hits blunt. Hits blunt. Fuck it. Let's load them up with flat earthers.
yeah, we were talking about that yesterday in class. One guy was like, "Oh, I bet someone's gonna like take drugs up there," but I'm like, "Ah, nah." I'm like, they're probably gonna have to go through like so much shit. There's one artist who made like a YouTube video as like an application to go to the moon,
Mm.
and he builds his own instruments. There's a Facebook video going viral of his instrument. It's a guitar and this wheel that drops marbles on certain instruments to make a beat, and
Mm.
it's actually like pretty cool. But we're at an hour now, so this is where we're gonna end it. Thanks, Steve, for all the interesting conversation between the weather and movies and TV shows
Mostly,
and
mostly
firearms
in religion. Let's not
and
even go to that
religion.
religion.
I always say that so I can give myself a little mental cue of when I make the title of because I just put 3 main topics we hit in the title, and so
Religion, guns, and weed.
movies.
Movies. Yeah, put movies.
All
Don't
right,
put guns.
that's.
If you put guns in there, it's if it'll get tagged and then fucking.
I don't make revenue off any of these fucking videos. It doesn't matter at this point.
I know, but at the same time, you're gonna get shit.
It's whatever. I'm sure I'll get enough shit from fucking all the religion talk we had, but it's whatevs. So
Yep.
that is it for episode 4. And I don't know how to end it, so I'm just going to stop the stream.